this weekend is round 2 of Super Rugby. There are 2 South African derbies while the Sharks host the Hurricanes. Garrin and Rob are joining me in studio. Guys, what can we expect from the 3 South African matches that are happening this weekend?
Hi Jen, as you said correctly, this weekend is a full house of Super Rugby matches. The first South African derby takes place on Friday evening, 7:10 kickoff in Bloemfontein between the Cheetahs and the Bulls. Both teams lost last weekend, so they'll be looking to record their first victory. The Cheetahs were particularly disappointing at home against the Lions, who everyone I think expected to win. So Coach Narka-Drotsky probably read the riot act, I'm sure, at practice this week. They welcomed the Bulls, who went down to the Sharks, perhaps not so surprisingly last weekend as well. So a clash of the defeated teams taking place at the Free State Stadium. You know, it's a bit of a toss-up. Personally, Rob, I don't know what you think, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cheetahs or the Bulls won. It's one of those 50-50 games. I think the bookmakers are struggling to separate the two teams as well. They've made a couple of changes, nothing really noteworthy. Victor Matfield's still on the Bulls bench. He hasn't been sort of entrusted with the starting berth at lock yet. So it could come down to a penalty kick or two, drop goal perhaps even at the end, I reckon.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to let you weigh in on the situation.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one to call, that one. I sort of seesawed. I was leaning a little bit towards the Cheetahs at one point, then looked a little bit at last season's record and noticed that the Bulls did manage to knock over the Cheetahs twice, actually. I think each time it was only by about 5 or 6 points, both at Loftus and in Bloemfontein. So I'm going to take the slightly daring route and say that there will be an away win for the Bulls, partly just to be consistent with my theory that the Bulls might just edge the Cheetahs for a sort of a mid-table spot on the South African Conference, where I've tipped the Bulls to be the 3rd place South African side and the Cheetahs 4th. So by extension, I suppose I'm saying that the Bulls will do themselves a bit of a favour by getting a win this weekend. But a very, very tight game to call. I'm not comfortable about it.
And then in the second game in Durban, 5:05 kickoff on Saturday, I think a little bit easier to call. The Sharks at home against the Hurricanes. They obviously didn't play in week 1. They've travelled all the way over to Durban. They haven't named their team yet, but we're sort of expecting an exciting backline from the Hurricanes. They tend to score some really exciting tries, but their forwards probably not going to be able to match up to those of the Sharks. Sharks, as we mentioned, coming off a victory against the Bulls. Jake White doing fantastic things in Durban. Sharks by 10, 12 points, I reckon, even depending on the humidity, depending on the weather. I don't think it'll be a problem for the Sharks recording their 2nd win of the season.
Okay, Rob, predictions for the second game?
Yes, I'm going to equal that by also saying 10 points. That's what I've predicted on paper. I think that the Sharks should get across the line. Having said that, a slightly dangerous game, Garrin, given that they first hit out against a foreign side, so you don't quite know what to expect from the Hurricanes, perhaps. They might start the season looking surprisingly fresh. They might start the season really struggling with the Durban humidity, considering that they're coming from sort of windy Wellington in New Zealand. So not the ideal place to be sort of trying to shape up for a Sharks game in February in Durban. So you'd think that the New Zealand side will be breathing heavily and that the Sharks, possibly superior conditioning at this time of the year, should see them fairly comfortably across the line, also given the greater grunt that they will have in the pack.
Okay, let's move on to the third game.
And then the third game, as Rob mentioned earlier, the Storm was the only team that didn't play last weekend. They travelled all the way to Johannesburg, Ellis Park, 7:10 kickoff on Saturday to play against the Lions, who shocked the Cheetahs last weekend. So the Cheetahs on a high. They've made 1 or 2 changes. Again, nothing really stand out. They've got Marnitz Boshoff coming off a man-of-the-match performance last weekend where he kicked all 21 points against the Stormers team that on paper must rank as one of the weakest teams I've seen, certainly in recent memory. Their backline in particular hasn't got any standout players. I know they've lost quite a few through departures to France and abroad and injuries. But their defence, I'm pretty sure, will still be the standout. They're key for them. And the Lions last weekend didn't manage to score a try. I don't see them scoring a try against the Stormers either. Again, you know, it's one of those games, I think, because the Stormers haven't played, they're going to struggle in the first 40 minutes to get any cohesion. They should be better in the second half. Will the altitude play an effect? Time will tell. I can't go against the Stormers. I think they will win. I think it will be a bit closer than I think some people think. 6, 7 points, maybe a converted try in it at the end. But I've got my fingers crossed. I'm slightly concerned the Lions might pull off a upset victory.
Yes, one of the things to consider as well, Jen, is that there's apparently a pretty good crowd forecast for Ellis Park. Nothing like an away win to get sort of home passions up and running for the season. The Lions did upset the Cheetahs in Bloemfontein, so that's good from a crowd appeal point of view. But the other thing, of course, is that a lot of Stormers fans are actually based in Johannesburg, so there will be quite a big sort of Stormers contingent in the big smoke for the game. They're saying that the crowd might be anything up to 45,000, which would be pretty impressive for the first Lions home game, especially as they're a franchise coming back into Super Rugby, not having played for a season. And that's another reason for the Lions to be pretty motivated. A big clash, big sort of north-south sort of game, if you like, which is always an emotional occasion in South Africa. So you can't tip with complete confidence that the Stormers will get past the post, but I think most neutral critics would probably be thinking that the Stormers should just about do it, even if there's still a little bit of rust to be wiped out.
Okay, so those are some pretty good predictions for those three matches. Any other matches we should be looking out for this weekend?
I think on paper the standout game of the entire weekend is probably the first game this weekend. It takes place at 8:35 tomorrow morning between the 7-time champion Crusaders and the 2-time defending Chiefs, taking place in Christchurch. Again, fantastic teams on paper, loaded with All Black players. Difficult to predict a winner, Rob. I don't know what you think. I'm tipping home ground advantage for the Crusaders, but by 1 or 2 points, if that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won. Richie McCaw's back leading the Crusaders. He's obviously massively inspirational for them, but they've got Dan Carter out. They've got a few new faces in the back line, but one is always excited to see the New Zealand players. They unearth some amazing talent year after year after year. So again, no confidence in predicting the Crusaders will win, but I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's match.
Yeah, I think it'll be a cracker. It's a fantastic way to start the New Zealand conference, and I know a lot of South Africans will be watching that game. We always have an interest in the Crusaders because they're always sort of thereabouts. Having said that, they're perhaps under a little bit of pressure, Garrin, to actually win the title again. It's been a while. They're always competitive, but they need to perhaps convinced that they are capable of getting back to where they were in their sort of glory years. And looking at that team on paper, I'm not quite as convinced that they're as sharp as they were sort of 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I'm just wondering if I'm leaning a little bit towards the Chiefs for this one, although that's a very risky prediction.
Well, I'm very excited to see what happens this weekend and to see if your predictions are correct. I know our audience can follow live updates on social media and share photos from the games. How can they do that, Garrin?
If they visit sport24.co.za, that's definitely the best way to go. We'll have live updates on all 3 South African games, asking readers at the grounds to send through their pictures dressed up in their favorite team outfits.
That's always fun.
And if you haven't already joined the Sport24 Super Brew Pool, do so. Make your predictions, challenge the experts at Sport24, see how we do compared to you. Should be a lot of fun this weekend.